How's it going, guys? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and I want to share this cool little trick with you guys today. Now, I did not come up with this. I read about this trick somewhere online where Andrew Scheps was talking about it, so all the credit goes to him. But I just want to make this video explaining how to do it and why to do it, because I thought it was pretty cool and it might be worth trying out. So Andrew Scheps calls it his rear bus technique, and I believe that's because his console was a modified Neve broadcast board, so it had a second mix bus that was meant for the rear speakers, hence the rear bus. But anyway, first let's talk about the setup of this technique, and then we'll talk about what we're achieving with it. So here we have our mix bus, which all of our tracks are ultimately going to, and on it we have just a little console emulation and a little bit of light compression down here. We're probably doing like 2 decibels of compression. Pretty normal for a mix bus. But then here we have a second bus, and we're sending everything in our mix except our drums to this. So you can see here, I have my bass, my guitars, my vocals, and all my effects sending there. And I have the send here, post fader, with the fader at 0, so that it's literally just getting my mix minus the drums. You could also just come here and send all your tracks to both your mix bus and your rear bus like that. If you're in Pro Tools, you just hold Control to assign multiple outputs. But in this case, we've got the buses going, so that works. And then both my main mix bus and my rear bus track are being sent to the same master fader. So like I said, if we mute our regular mix bus, so we're just hearing our rear bus and bypass the processing. First thought in my mind, when it gets too late at night. That's just our mix with no drums. By the way, this track is called Can't Sleep at Night by the band Sounds and Scenarios, so be sure to check them out. But anyway, let's look at what we're doing to our rear bus. This trim here is irrelevant to what we're talking about. Okay, so here we go. You can ignore this trim, that's just some gain staging thing going on here. Then I've got a console emulation, which was the same thing I had on my main mix bus. Now what we're really here to talk about is this compressor. I've got an 1176. You could ultimately use any compressor you want, but in this case, this is what I'm using. So let's hit play and see what this compressor is doing. So since our drums aren't hitting this compressor, our vocals are the loudest thing going on, so they're really controlling the amount of compression happening. So when the vocals were singing, we're getting, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 decibels of compression, and then in between lines, the compression backed off quite a bit. So effectively what that's doing is it's turning down all the instruments when the singing is happening, and then when the singing stops, all the instruments swell up in volume a little bit. So I'm going to play that again, and specifically listen for that swelling in between lines. I'm just going to turn this bus up a little bit so you can hear it better. First thought in my mind, when it gets too late at night, and I begin to dive on in to the lonely thoughts within. So hopefully you can hear that. Let me turn this back down. I've got it at like -6 decibels here, so it's a good bit quieter than our main bus. So when we mix that in with our main mix bus, the effect will be a little more subtle since it's in parallel. But you'll still get a little bit of the feeling of the guitars especially being pushed down just a little bit while the vocals are in, and then filling that space again when the vocals aren't there. Let's check that out. First thought in my mind, when it gets too late at night, and I begin to dive on in to the lonely thoughts within. I tried. So what's cool about that is I do a lot of automation in my mixes. And one move I'll do a lot is boosting the guitars just a little bit, kind of in between words and in between vocal lines to fill in the space. Or conversely, pulling the guitars down just a little bit if they're getting in the way of the vocals. So this rear bus is essentially doing that automatically for me. Now you still might have to go in later and do more automation on it if certain parts need to be a little more extreme or whatever. But this is a really cool way to really get your mix glued together and get your vocals and guitars or synths or whatever you have working well together before you get to the automation stage. Now just a note, because of the way this is set up, you'll really want to set this up from the start of your mix. It's not really something you can throw in at the end, because if you tried that, it would throw all your levels off, especially with your drums. So I'd encourage you to try this on your next mix. Just set this up from the start, mix into it, and see how you like it. And again, all the credit for this idea goes to Andrew Scheps. I did not come up with this, but I just want to share it with you guys. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and head on over to BetterMixes.com to grab a free copy of my Ultimate EQ cheat sheet.